Greetings in the love and light of our infinite creator, our infinite prime creator. I would like to offer for your consideration, the esteemed viewer, the topic of Lucifer, the morning star, more infamously or notoriously known as being synonymous with Satan, the evil one, the fallen angel, Lucifer, et cetera, et cetera. And depending on your context, Lucifer can mean many different things. So that's the topic of this video. And I've been really struggling for a way to once and for all offer something by way of explanation about how Lucifer fits in within my own cosmology. And our, let's say, divine human matrix, what I consider, heroes. Yeah. I have a statue of Lucifer, but it's nothing nefarious or nothing that's, it just looks like a pensive angel in reflection. It could very well be the Archangel Michael. There's nothing satanic or dark about it. It's just a beautiful statue. But that's kind of how strongly I feel about the light bringer and what he represents to me. And by any means do I consider myself a satanic person. I believe in really good and evil. There's so many variations and shades and meanings of that it's better to stick with the service to self modality and the service to others modality. And so I aspire to be service to others. I mean, I'd like to think that's what I'm all about. Of course, there's three people that we are, right? There's the person that we think we are. There's the person the consensus of opinion on how others view you, and then there's the truth that are in between, are a synthesis of those two things. But anyway, this video is about Lucifer, and I believe that this will be a good sort of way to explain this or kind of present this. So this is a video that I'm going to share just a little snippet of Magenta Pixie. She's an author, channeler. I've got a few of her books. She's a very talented, interested person, very good writer. Like I said, I got like 3 or 4 of her books, Magenta Pixie. And apparently through her Facebook group or whatever, somebody had talked about Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. She's a Russian mystic writer, very prolific writer, very strong personality too, and uncommon. She smoked cigars and drank and stuff and whatever, and got in debates with other. She was a badass anyway. But Magenta talks about Miss Helena Blavatsky, Madame Blavatsky, because Helena, the Russian mystic you see this photo of here, had a magazine that she called Lucifer, and she talked about Lucifer among other things. Like I said, she was a prolific writer, like Isis Unveiled, the Secret Doctrines, all these books that were like founded theosophy, and very brought like Eastern mysticism and all that knowledge to the Western world. But a very interesting figure on her own right. But she's the topic of this video because of her association with Lucifer. And so Magenta at this point in the video is talking like somebody had asked her a question, concerned that Blavatsky was part of this cult of Lucifer, that the dark forces that are the cabal, the deep state, the Illuminati, Masons, basically, that's who they worship as Lucifer. And so there's connotations of Lucifer with Inky, and planet Saturn, like ETs, So there's so much stuff, and I don't know. I mean, I just know that I believe the energy of Lucifer, the Archangel Lucifer, is part of God's plan. He's the part. He was Michael's brother, the Archangel Michael's brother. You know, and so he's part of the family in my estimation. Now he's not Satan, okay? And Satan is just somebody who can't. Who's trying to have things his way and try to drag as many people down with him as he can, and that are it can is like some reptilian dark overlord. Anyway, so I'm going to play this video, and that's what Magenta is going to start talking about. Helena Blavatsky and her ideas of Lucifer. Okay, and so here we go.
Of that structure, then you will find that this is the case. And she also asked why, at the end of Madame Blavatsky's life, did she have a magazine called Lucifer? Why did she write a poem in her first book glorifying and celebrating Lucifer? She just said she'd like some clarity on this. She feels that her texts do show Luciferian ideology. You can see it through her writings. The basic tenet being that Yahweh is a God that was enslaving mankind by keeping them from knowledge in the Garden of Eden. And rather than protecting their innocence, Yahweh was preventing humanity from their full potential. Lucifer liberated mankind by showing them good and evil, and has actually liberated us from Yahweh's enslavement. Because of this liberation and knowledge, humans now have the ability to become gods or godlike with the same abilities as God. So this is what the person who wrote this comment was recalling from her research into Madame Blavatsky. And she was saying that, you know, with a service to others path, you serve God, you follow God's divine will. You don't become a god yourself, although you might become godlike. Your awakening is really about merging back to the Godhead and not staying an individuated Godhead yourself. So this is what the person was commenting. I wanted to know about Madame Blavatsky based on this information, this research, and this paradigm. And she said, you would ask to be guided by God and follow God's will in a service to others capacity, as we all do when we work with higher dimensional beings or angels or councils of light. But the Luciferian path is to become a god yourself and using your abilities to manifest what you wish because you feel you're God's full equal. So she goes on to talk about other things that's, you know, about Wicca and different kinds of philosophies. And she's saying in the wrong hands, the goal of being the creator can actually go wrong quite quickly, as we can see in the entire transhumanist movement of the service to self, which is absolutely correct, of course, that's true. So she just goes on to say, our version of the new earth is quite different from their version of the Great Reset, if you will. She didn't necessarily use those words. And that shows clearly how this very small philosophical seed can manifest very different realities. She says, Lucifer is a great example of a service to self-angel following his own will, not God's will. So why did Helena Blavatsky name her magazine Lucifer? And she feels that the cult, I presume what she means by the cult is the service to self faction, the negative faction, they have a light branch. So I go on to reply to this, and this is where I sort of go into things a little bit deeper, because I wanted this individual to have some understanding of not just my perspective, but Helena Blavatsky's perspective, so that she may choose to reformulate her paradigm or reject my perspective and my presentation of Helena Blavatsky's perspective. It's up to her if she takes this on board or rejects it, as it is up to you listening now to do the same thing. I know there's a lot of information about Helena Blavatsky out there. I will say before I read this, I haven't done any research into her particularly, a small amount. And really, I've just been looking at photographs. I haven't really read any of her teachings, the odd quote. So I haven't really researched her. I'm not familiar with her work. I haven't read any of her books. but I do have insight into her. And I will now read what I wrote in reply. Madame Helena Blavatsky was not part of any cult. She was not a branch of anything. She was totally independent. She was looking for kindred spirits, yes, and to start a movement, but she was not part of an occult light branch. What is written in history books or even biographies of any person who lived once before will never hold full accuracy. There will always be a skewed and distorted presentation of that person. So I will add to that, that that's the case in varying forms. You might actually find historical biographies of some individuals that are fairly accurate, but I know by these, as I said in the last video, about celebrities I've spoken to, famous people I've spoken to, spirits that are in the fourth dimension who've transitioned, who've done things in this reality. Speaking to them, I know that the historical perspective, the presentation of that person is never fully accurate of who that person truly was. Their work, if they wrote, if they painted, if they created music, their work will show you far more of who they were, their creativity, their creation. That will show you far more of who they were than any historical perspective, because it's simply the perspective of the researcher. And often these are skewed through no fault of their own, and often they are skewed deliberately. And that happens hugely, especially with people who've lived in the spiritual movement or who've been political leaders who are very famous. And it happens now with people who are still living. So just adding that in. So what is written in history books or even biographies of any person who lived once before will never hold full accuracy. There will always be a skewed and distorted presentation of that person. Sometimes because they were private and few people really knew them. And sometimes because historical records are deliberately altered. Balanced and genuinely connected individuals would see a service to others guidance structure very, very, very different. As I said, I haven't researched her, I haven't read her work. I don't need to do this in order to know her, in order to know who she was,
because she channels
why she did the things she
nine-winged
did.
collective. She
accessed a lot of knowledge in her life. She was a genuine channel, a genuine medium, but because her ego aspect was not balanced or fully integrated, she came across sometimes as someone with a God complex, just like the overlord structure. She came across as arrogant and controlling, but she was service to others. Her non-integrated ego was due to frustration, not negative polarization. Very, very different. Lucifer to her was the light bearer and the source of light. She saw Lucifer as intellect and intelligent energy. She didn't realize the importance of the integrated heart and the intertwining with heart and Kundalini. She hadn't learned that aspect. And the reason for that was she felt she always had to prove herself. She always had to prove herself as a woman in a man's world, because back then, being a spiritual leader was seen to be the role of a man, not a woman. So she had to work harder to make a name for herself in that spiritual doctrine, as a teacher of that, as someone bringing forward original material. It wasn't seen that a woman was able to do that in the way that she did. So she was constantly feeling she had to prove herself. So she was always on the defensive about herself. And she didn't quite integrate that. She tried to, but she didn't quite integrate that aspect. So she was constantly on the defensive. She was constantly having to prove herself all the time. And so she would come across as someone who held the God complex, but she didn't. She didn't hold the God complex at all. It was due to frustration, which, as I said, is very different. She very much walked the male path in her spiritual seeking. She lived her life as a divine feminine, and she was very embracing of the divine feminine, but she didn't feel that she could create spirituality through a feminine path. And the feminine path is the path of the incarnated female, or the individual who expresses themselves as a female, but they still take a male path, but they balance the two together, as the male will embrace the feminine and the goddess and balance the two together. Back then, the spiritual path was presented differently. So she walked the male path in her spiritual seeking, despite being embracing of the divine feminine. She actually went quite far as to sometimes put men down verbally. Now, this was because they had challenged her. Many men didn't like the fact that a woman had more knowledge and knowing and esoteric connection
Told you she was a badass.
It was actually triggering them, because they felt through their societal upbringing that they should be the ones doing this. So they would challenge her and try to put her down all the time. So she became even more defensive against men than she was with women. And often she made it her goal to put men down verbally whenever she had the chance. And she did it every time. She always outwitted them. And she loved doing that. So is that someone who's out of integrity? Well, yes, that's not really our spiritual path, to sit there and put someone down, regardless of whether they're a man or a woman. That's not the teaching. But this is who she was. She wasn't bad. She wasn't negative. She wasn't part of the overlord structure, but she wasn't a whole, fully balanced person. She had flaws, as we all do, and she acted in response to the environment that she grew up in. And it wasn't just that she was defending herself against men. It was the family, the things she was told she was expected to do as the ego. So she would need a full 100% indigo frequency, because the indigo individuals have very high ego, for the reason, because they need it in order to understand the falsehoods within society and within the system, so that they can stand against it. So the indigos are the warriors. So she would have come in as a 100% indigo individual due to her non-integrated ego in her lifetime as Helena. And in her current incarnation, she would need to learn humility from a very young age, so that by the time she began teaching again, then she would have worked on that integration. And she would need it, because humility is needed in order to present the teachings, which she didn't learn in that life. And for the time period she lived in, she did what was needed then. Things are now very, very different in this time period, so they're needed differently. So she would need to learn humility from a very young age, and she would potentially suffer within the learning of the lesson of humility, because she held so much of this, this defensiveness and this fighting a woman in a man's world, that she would come in to this incarnation holding that. So she would be rebelling against male control from a very, very young age, almost as young as 2, 3, 4 years old. And that would be evident in her chart-specific source that I have here, which involves the 9, but is different to the 9. So I am told that nothing has ever touched her core essence and delivered it correctly. So I will say again, she was not negatively polarized. She was not on the path to negative polarization. She was a seed creator for the positive polarization. She was not part of the cult. She was not
the Illuminati,
Luciferian in the terms most people would recognize. Naming her magazine Lucifer is no different to me having a magazine and naming it The 9. Now, I'm not saying that the 9 are Lucifer or that the 9 are Luciferian. I'm saying that the way she perceived Lucifer is no different to how I would perceive the 9. It was a guidance system of light within a service to others' positive polarization.
Bam. All right. So anyway, I'm sorry, I had to let Magenta is brilliant, and her videos, I highly recommend checking her videos out. But anyway, so at the very least, you can see how a name can represent different things to different people. And by its, and just on the name basis itself, literally, Lucifer, Lux, the name means light bringer. Okay. And when you keep in mind the control structure of the Catholic Church, the just Christianity and organized religion in general, especially religions of the book, the Aramaic, whatever they're called, the religions of the book, you know, but they're all basically top-down control. And so everything they can get and subvert and twist, that's what they do to keep people in fear and under their control mechanism. So if anything, you know, I hope that clears up the name Lucifer. And I'm trying to do my part to clear Archangel Lucifer, because I believe that his energy or her energy, it's genderless when you're talking about these higher energy structures that are closer to source. They're a protective energy that allows people to live kind of dangerously in a sense, but you still have angelic protection as long as you're still trying to figure things out, unless you've just gone down that path of total pledge, you know. I mean, and Lucifer is not Satan. I guarantee you they're two separate entities. And I don't know, but if anything, that's what Lucifer represents to me, literally based on the name, light bringer, knowledge bringer. There's so many legends that are mythologies, like with, you know, Phoenix and Prometheus and, you know, all these, you know, but basically knowledge, whether Lucifer is actually one of the Anunnaki brothers that had a beef over giving humans too much knowledge and sharing knowledge with them because they wanted to keep them as a slave race. I think there's definitely truth to that. But I don't know who was who and what was what, but, you know, I only have what I can go on. And at the end of the day, like I said, I maintain it really doesn't matter. The whole, people can argue and debate all day long about these things of fancy. Really, the only thing critical is getting your own path straightened out and living how, you know, whatever it is. And it really comes down, good and evil come down, and even associating service to self with service to self modality with evil and service to others with good is not correct. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, it's the two paths are so closely aligned when they, in certain ways. But like I said, I don't lose any sleep over it. I don't lose any sleep over people, you know, not liking my videos, or, but I do kind of, it does kind of, I feel compelled that when somebody insinuates that I'm a Satanist, you know, and that was basically because of some shirt that I wore. But with my words in particular, I want to make it clear that you know, to me, a Satanist is somebody who's anti-life. They're, you know, I mean, they have such a hatred and such a void within themselves that they're going to do everything they can to create pain and, you know, just really just, they're not a team. I mean, they just want to take everybody down with them. And that's what Satan represents to me. Okay. The opposite, the opposite of unity consciousness. And, you know, and so it's, anyway, hopefully that Magenta Pixie, by way of talking about Helena Blavatsky, offers some perspective on things. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, people are going to judge people if they're in that sort of ego. If they're living from the ego, you know, people are always going to have something to try to throw you off your walk, throw you off your soul walk, your soul path. And I've talked about that before. That's just part of the 3D digital matrix, as to cause, you know, but once you learn how to, on your path to rise above the intellect and the ego, which the intellect feeds the ego. And, you know, people can get in arguments all day long. I'm not about that. You know, if somebody comes at me and wants to try to dissect something with intellect on words that I've said or my perspective, that's fine. I'm going to move it to spirit level. And so, you know, and I've done that in the past, and that's where I test the spirit. And that's the only thing that we really have as humans, is discernment and testing the spirit. you know, and you better do it quick within 20 seconds and find out, because otherwise they'll zap you with that theta ray, and then who knows where you'll end up. But Lucifer, I want to zap people with the light ray, the rays of light, knowledge, peace, truth, and wisdom, and unity consciousness. All right, bros and sisters, namaste. Let's all be soul soldiers on the path to light. Namaste, namaskaram.